Good afternoon. How are you? Well, the skies are threatening, and I'm thinking since I've got this far, I'll probably be okay the rest of the way. We'll see if I can hold up to my own prediction. Thomas Jefferson today is delivering at 79 degrees and 52% humidity and 12 miles an hour. I feel a slight breeze. I don't normally walk on this part because it's open, and so the breeze affects the microphone and so forth. There's always a number of items to discuss, and I'm talking about our national, political, international situation with Trump daily delivering some assault on the mind, the senses, on history, and it's by design, but he also intends a lot of these things. Now, there's still some people scratching their heads saying, you know, he said he was going to be a dictator. Is he really thinking that? Oh, he didn't really mean that. There's that group. And so the latest statement consistent with what I believe is his true intention, which is he hopes to be our dictator. And I point to data points, if you will, all the time. And one of the most obvious ones is his statement that, I think I'll have a third term. It could happen. And he has doubled down on this statement recently. That is to say, I think he said it on a Friday, and then over the weekend he repeated it. So it shouldn't surprise us, given all of his other actions, that he is serious about it and that he believes he should have it. And he should have it because of all the enemies he has and what they've done to him. And he's going to set the world straight. And when I say the world straight, that's what he wants to do. The Constitution, in the 22nd Amendment, I believe, bars more than 2 terms. And it was decided after Franklin Roosevelt had 4 terms that we should have some limit. And Washington had 2 terms. And I'm sure it was discussed, but I don't remember what was the decision to make it 2. And I suppose because the second term is arguably a lame duck period. It may also be when you can do things you couldn't do in the first term of office. So we have a parallel for this in that Rudy, when he was mayor, after 9/11, tried to convince everybody to let him stay on, to have a third term. So you see, this is in the blood of these guys. They want the power and they don't care what the law is. And this is a worldwide problem we have now, because in other nation states, they're fighting against this kind of thinking that the laws and the rules don't apply. I am the person, I can do what I want. So that's what we have. Now, how about our reaction to it? I think there are 2 broad actions that we're taking, and only one of them is effective. The first is a choice of re-election, and the second is a choice of resistance. The trouble with the choice of the election is it presumes regularity in our functions of government, including our electoral functions, and ignores the fact that the timing for the electoral proceedings are far enough off that by waiting that period of time, and it may be short as compared to Hitler's preparations for his ascent into the higher levels of Deutsches Reich. So we have to realize that function, election, in which a person is concerned about being reelected is not the same as an individual resisting what Trump is doing. And so when we were at the town meeting the other evening, and this is unscientific sampling, but I made similar remarks to what I make here when we do our walk and talk. And I made the same point. I said the Democratic Party had the wrong idea here. And no less than the Raging Cajun, Carville, was saying, oh, you shouldn't do anything in the Hill. And there was like silence for a moment. And I think it was 2 things. One is they were contemplating it, and the other is Democrats don't say these things, and they should. Because if we can't talk among ourselves about the hard choices, then we can just become law professors and talk about it when we can do nothing about it. Our response has to be not just the word that was wrong, but a corresponding action that manifests force, a counter force against the effort to make Trump the dictator he wants to be, the monarch he wants to be, the autocrat he wants to be, with and without an oligarchy supporting him, that he will shed as soon as he can if his plan goes as scheduled. So at this event the other night, after saying what I just related to you, I said that we had to make this distinction between elections and resistance, and that we couldn't wait till the midterms, had to act now, and it had to be very clearly a counterforce to what was going on. Now to that, there was a pretty strong favorable reaction among the crowd to that. Again, it's not a scientific sample, and it could reflect frustration, but there wasn't anything, it wasn't a rhetorical pirouette, it was a pretty straightforward statement, what I made. So the people, Democratic activists, an unscientific sample size, think party politics is just fine, but this is about a lot more and a lot more important. Now, one of the things noted was while we had some young activists at the meeting, we didn't have more. And one of the reasons is, as a party, we're not talking to the young. We're not telling them their future is being squandered. They're not interested in knocking on doors to elect a delegate. Okay, now, this may be a breach of party loyalty, but it's true. And I'm not saying that no youngsters are interested. I was interested at a very young age, in a different period of history. So we have to reach out. One of the suggestions I made at the meeting was, invite the young to consider that the loans they may need to have an education, to advance themselves, if they have the skill to make good use of an advanced education, will be gone. In fact, that's what killing the Department of Education is about. So I see a political split among Democrats and others. And there's the narrow thinkers, not all old, the political class, if you will, in America, that sees they are getting nowhere because it's all talk. Where are the motions? Where are the court cases? Where are the bills? Where are the rallies? Where are the town meetings? Where are taking to the Republicans to fight? Nowhere. They're afraid to do anything. And we made a corrupt bargain with business when we said we could serve both masters. And as long as it was a blend between capitalistic planning and social benefits, we had a compromise that allowed us to go forward. But they're breaking that contract. They're breaking that compact. And that's critical. So we have the political split between the narrow, and then we have the broader group. A broad view of what's unfair, what's unequal, what's unjust. And these values, which are the kinds of values a government can justify, because they are not transactional. So if I am concerned as a government about the health of America, what does America have to do to trade off? Well, we worked out a formula for that. But what it is to spend ahead to the people ahead of us. And you can look at a tally over a business lifetime and say, well, I contributed $700,000 in taxes to those older than me, and now I'm in that position and I'm not working or can't work, or I'm disabled, or I'm poor, and the people behind me, the younger ones, they understand and they're helping me. That's what it was about. Republicans call it a Ponzi scheme because they claim it's just a fraud. Well, who benefits from this fraud? It's not a fraud at all. It is a manner of passing funds generation to generation so that people can retire and live with dignity and share, if they have it, a wisdom body about what they've learned. In other words, a living, vibrant community. Now, this is not Pollyannish. We look around the world, and there are other nations that are not imperial and not building in some imperial fashion. So, one section of our country plays like this is a mahjong game board. And I say that because it's a complicated game, but it's a game. And what we're doing, if a game, it has very real consequences. It has impact. It can hurt. It's a contact sport. So we have to have a game, a philosophy in which we're equal to each other and before the law. And we respect the law and rules and traditions. And these are our signposts that measure whether or not we're civilization or not. Now, the best current example is people are looking at special elections, right? And that if certain people win in those elections, that will be an indication what the voters think. Now, Wisconsin is one of those examples. Wisconsin has a race to be elected a judge when the Supreme Court in Wisconsin has, if I'm right, a 4-3 division between those who are considered liberal and those who are considered not liberal. It's a state that's going to consider what to do about abortion and other things, including what to do about being a dealer in cars in the state of Wisconsin, litigation that's going on now that may reach the Supreme Court. The question is, can you buy a judge in America? Well, if you can buy a congressman or a senator, why not? I remember an effort in West Virginia, some believe to be exactly that calculation. Now, Musk has done something interesting. He's paying $100 to people who sign a petition against activist judges. Really? Now think about that. I'm paying money for a vote, or I'm affirming a vote you made by giving you money. What's wrong with that? It's transactional. A vote is not transactional. Those of us who've been around politics enough know about the stories of walking around money. How you give people money either to vote or to stay away from voting. You pay them $100 in cash, small bills. And then Musk is also giving out $1 million a head also to affect the election. Now, are these laboratory conditions to discern from the outcome what the people want? And you go online and look at the ads. The ads have people saying that the criminals will be happy if Mary Crawford wins. She's designated as a liberal. She has She has quite a resume. She's deserving. She's a judge. She's not a politician. And I think the people can rest assured she'd be an impartial vote. The other guy was the other person was Attorney General of the state. And he has, on the stump, told voters, if they win this election, we won't be able to do anything about it until the next presidential election. Does that sound like the speech a judge should be giving in an election? No, I don't think so. Now, this does say something about the risk of having elected judicial officers. There's, when I got out of law school, there was a judge, I managed to see in chambers, and he taught at Columbia Law School, and he had quite a resume. And somebody just sent me a copy of a very long ago article I wrote about Judge Jacob Weinstein. And he sat in the Eastern District of New York, that's east of the East River, Brooklyn Company, and places in that direction. And he wanted to be the chief judge, and there was an election for that to happen. And I went and I interviewed him because, in addition to other things I was doing, is I would write stories for a newspaper called Our Town. And at one point I was on the masthead as well. But I did it because it'll give me a chance to talk to people in the community and write about what they had to say. And so if it fits, I'll attach that article to this. Weinstein didn't say a word about politics. It was about the court, what he hoped to do, what he'd learned as a professor, all the many books he wrote. He had time on this earth, died at 99, to do all of that and to be a discerning element in what it means to be a creature of the law. He was not an activist, which is a word that is used for people to think judges can do all sorts of things that are improper. Talking politics seems to me is improper. So Schimmel, who is the opponent of Mary Crawford, is the Republican. The irony is the state attorney general has come in to complain about the techniques of Musk and the fact that there's a total of like $99 million being spent on this election. Again, hardly laboratory conditions. And so they say things like criminals want to elect the Democrat. Is that bizarre if you think about it? Really? People know they're a criminal and they're going to go out and they're going to vote for her because she'll protect them? And there's this notion, if you understand the law and do the law and are kind of boring in a way, then you must be hiding the fact you're really an activist judge. Now, activism, it seems to me, is on the side of the Republicans. They ignore, the most obvious example is a precedent of 50 years involving Roe v. Wade. And they're trying to do this in all sorts of ways, including like the immunity of the president. And what they've done in Wisconsin now is made Musk the issue, because it might have been just an argument about who would be the better judge. But that's not going that way. And the reason it's not going that way is the Republicans are afraid of a harvest of all their bad ideas that goes the other way. Because maybe the people don't want this. Although it's not clear that they know what they want when there's such a distortion in the public domain of what statement is being made about judges. Now, Judge Weinstein, he offered a program how to deal with the Supreme Court, it's called the Court of Appeals in New York, that he sought to lead, whereas his opponent was slamming doors and jails, saying he would be a law and order judge, which would probably be more appropriate if you were running for DA or for Attorney General, although Attorney General in most places is more often a civil position, not a criminal position, handle appeals. So what am I saying? I'm saying that we are bombarded with two pathways. One leads us to think only in classical political terms of an election, even though it's one that may miss the key issues and be distorted beyond belief, seeking people to use that information to come up with a decision. And there's an old information saying called GIGO. The information that goes into a process to make a decision is garbage. So you can't expect to have something any better than that come out the other side. Garbage in, garbage out. Am I saying Schimel is garbage? Yes, I am. Am I saying Mary Crawford is an exemplary candidate to be a judge? Yes, because she stayed within the lines of what a judge should be. Judge Breyer goes around to this day, former Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, saying that the people trust the court, the Supreme Court in his case, because the court conducts itself in a way that invites trust. A proceeding like this that's happening in Wisconsin does not invite trust. The candidacy of Jack Weinstein in the end failed. Is that a bad sign? I think it is. Now, there are a lot of people that thought he should continue as the chief judge in the federal system, but he had a hunger. He saw a way to do something better. And I was called on the carpet a little bit and asked about writing this statement about Judge Weinstein as a clerk in the U.S. Court of Appeals. And the judge basically said to me, that's fine. He said he had been once a member of the Liberal Party in New York, and his old political friends get upset with him because he now says things that they don't agree with. So we live in a community. We contribute to the community. We bring our wisdom body to the issues of the day. We try to figure out what the truth is and make that the predicate for decisions we make. And we go from there. On these terms, that is, a self-selecting, ambitious candidate versus a resistance to unconstitutional and depraved acts that would compromise our republic and our democracy, we have to choose the latter. We will be judged, if people still write and read, by how we conduct ourselves in the days ahead. So that's what I got from this little stroll in the Cathedral of Trees. Talk to you tomorrow with any luck. Bye-bye.